January 11th, 2019, the TrackMania Grand League was officially announced. The first event hosted and sponsored by Ubisoft Nadeo, introducing a new format along with a new type of maps for the competitive scene. And from start to finish, it was one player who controlled the show, and that player was the Canadian CarlJr from Solary. And this is his road to victory. Before the season could start, players need to qualify themselves from the different regional qualifiers. CarlJr, who is from Quebec in Canada, had to fight for the only slot given to the North American players. And only having one slot, CarlJr still had no problems making it and beating his countrymen. But when you look at the overall times from the 16 players qualifying to the seasons, CarlJr ended up with the worst overall time. Why? Well, he used the qualifier to set world records on the flying laps instead of setting the overall fastest times.
And let's see what this time is. 46.46, he equaled it. Oh yeah, oh wait, he actually beat it by 0.006.
Once we got to the first official race of the season, many people wondered what players would start off the best. And already on the first map, we got the indication that the Canadian showed up to put yet another tournament win under his belt.
Brent remaining on that third place. We have Kappa pretty far behind. He's not going to make anything happen, so it will be the battle for second and third right here. CarlJr is going to win map number 1. He's going to clock in 20 points. Papu not going very well. That Bren almost sniping Papu at the last turn, but he remains on third place.
The story on map 2, 3 and 4 was more or less the same. CarlJr placing himself among the top but not taking home any map wins. Placing 5th on map 2, 2nd on map 3 and 3rd on map 4. However, with this format it doesn't really matter how well you do on map 1 to 4 unless you're able to keep yourself among the top 8 on map 5. If you place yourself outside the top 8, well, all your points gathered will be removed.
Now CarlJr, who is right now on 13th place. After that no slide, he has some catching up to do, so let's follow CarlJr. He is on 2nd place in total with 44 points. A position right now would be disastrous.
But even with having a slow start to the last map, CarlJr was still able to come back and win the map, leaving the step as their overall leader. Step 2 continued in many ways like step 1 was for CarlJr. Already on map 1 he proved himself to be one of the strongest players this step and took 3rd on map 1. On map 2 CarlJr found himself once again in a battle for the top position, this time just missing out on the top 3 placement and finishing 4th. And CarlJr seemed to like that 4th place because on map 3 he once again found himself finishing 4th. But having a streak of non-podium placement wasn't a streak that CarlJr wanted to continue. Showing up on map 4 and taking 2nd behind his former teammate Pack. And when we entered the last map of the step, CarlJr found himself at 2nd place behind Scrappy, but finishing 5th on the last map, CarlJr dropped down to the 3rd place of this step, but still having the overall lead when 2 steps out of 10 was done. At step 3 we once again found ourselves having 3 new maps along with 2 maps from the previous step. And with this being the first step where it was publicly announced that the winner of each map would get 100 euros, CarlJr didn't wait long before he snatched his first $100 bill of the evening.
Just barely, but he's gonna lose some time towards CarlJr, who is looking to win map number 1 right here. 2 more jumps right here, and then CarlJr will win map number 1. One last jump remaining for the Canadian player for Team Solary, the triple world champion in TrackMania 2 Stadium, will take first on map 1, followed by Scrappy, followed by Pack.
And on map 2 the story ended up being the same, CarlJr taking the lead and keeping it until the end, and once again putting 20 points to his overall scores and $100 in his back pocket. And on map 3 the Canadian superstar continued his streaks on win and made the hat-trick a reality. But on map 4 CarlJr's streak of wins ended. However, the Canadian was still able to finish among the top 3 and took the 3rd place. CarlJr's Step 3 ended up being the strongest performance that any player had shown up so far in the tournament, winning map 5 as well and taking home 4 out of the 5 map wins, and left Step 3 with 90 out of 100 points added to his overall score. Step 4 started off with CarlJr placing 2nd behind the British player Pack. But having won 4 maps the last step, CarlJr wasn't pleased with having a guy finishing in front of him, so CarlJr took revenge over Pack on map 2 and won in front of him. While on map 3 it was once again Pack who got the better of him and won the map, while CarlJr found himself finishing 3rd. CarlJr, who now entered the 19th map of the season, had yet to do any major mistakes. Well, it had to happen sometime.
Incredibly close right here. Following CarlJr right now, who goes for a lot of exit speed right there. Passes Pack as we speak. Oh! Wow! Double mistake by CarlJr and Cap. Both hitting the exact same corner. Both hitting the pole and both having to respawn. Oh my god, what is happening in this race?
But having 10 laps allowed CarlJr to catch up to the others and once again finishing inside the top 8, this time with a 6th place. At map 5, CarlJr found himself back in the fight for the top position, but this time it was Pack who left the step with the winning 4 out of 5 maps. CarlJr took 2nd on step 4 and his lead in the overall standings was yet to be in any danger. When we enter the 5th out of the 10 steps, the story from step 4 to continue, CarlJr placing 2nd behind Pack on map 1. On map 2, however, the roles were switched and this time it was CarlJr who were in front of Pack. And the 2 former champions once again battled for the top 1 and 2. This time the roles was once again switched and CarlJr finished 2nd behind Pack. But it's safe to say that map 4 didn't start off the best for the Canadian player.
Is gonna have a good chance at making up some time in the dirt sections. CarlJr with the first mistake already, ladies and gentlemen. CarlJr with the first mistake of this track has hit the dirt wall and already lost 3.8 seconds in turn 2. So not the greatest start for CarlJr. He definitely needs to push it now.
But once again, CarlJr used the upcoming laps to overtake his opponents and placed 5th on that map. But on map 5, CarlJr once again ended up in some troubles.
A mistake. What is happening? What is happening, ladies and gentlemen? CarlJr with 51 points. He is on 9th place now. I can't believe what I'm witnessing.
But even with finishing over 25 seconds behind the winner of the map, CarlJr was still able to place 8th and keep his points, collecting the 2nd most points on step 5. The second half of the season started off like the first half, CarlJr taking home the win on map 1 and continued stacking up money to his bank account and kept extending the gap down to his opponents. Map 2 of step 6 was the map that CarlJr struggled with on step 5, map 5, and so far had been the closest on finishing outside the top 8. However, this time the Canadian found himself at 2nd place. On map 3, CarlJr once again found himself in the top of the field and took home his 2nd win of the step. On map 4, CarlJr for the 2nd time of the step finished at 2nd place, still having a solid lead on the step overall. And once it looked like CarlJr would leave the step with 3 second places instead of 3 first places, it all changed in the end. CarlJr once again won a step, and the question seemed more about how many points it was gonna be down to the others, rather than if he was gonna win the league or not. Map 1 of step 7 ended up being a battle between the 2 Solary players.
of an advantage, so he is right now a little bit ahead of CarlJr, but CarlJr with a greatly executed section right there decides to release to land earlier in the slope to get more speed out of that landing. It is neck and neck here between the two Solary players. CarlJr versus Bren, they are neck and neck here entering the dirt section now. Bren almost landing on the barrier right there, and that will actually push him and give him a very, very good time advantage. Now the last jump coming up. If Bren survives this landing, he will win the race, and he will do so. Bren wins over CarlJr, and then we have
CarlJr finishing map 1 at 2nd place. And for a long time it looked like CarlJr would finishing map 2 as well on the 2nd place.
We are now coming into the final lap, ladies and gentlemen. Cap and CarlJr now about to overtake the burst right here with another overlap. CarlJr with more speed entering the dirt section, goes a little higher on the banking on the dirt, and he has more speed than Cap and goes for the overtake. Cap with a very unfortunate bump after the transition from dirt to road. CarlJr will overtake that lead, but Cap is not going to give up yet. We are coming into the full speed section now. Cap holding a little speed slide over the dirt, carries a little more speed than CarlJr over this section. It is a 1/10 of a second right here. This drop is going to be very important, both with a flat landing, both getting the equal amount of booster right here. And now we're coming through the loop-de-loop, the final sector now, the final time. We're going through the cacti. CarlJr still with a 0.1 of an advantage, and he's not going to let that slip through his hands. CarlJr wins map number 2 with only 1200ths of a lead.
But once again, CarlJr found himself winning a map in the step of TrackMania Grand League. And by now, you should know that CarlJr normally isn't happy with only one map win.
2 right here. CarlJr looking to take the next 100 euro for his pocket. I wonder, like, his pocket is gonna explode at some point. He's getting so many of those 100 euros. It's actually ridiculous. CarlJr winning this race gets another 20 points.
But even with winning maps, you're never safe in a format like TrackMania Grand League. And CarlJr found himself making a mistake early on map 4. But some things in life are set. Water is wet, fire burns, and CarlJr will find a way to finish top 8. This time was no different, and CarlJr placed 6th in the end of this map. And on the last map of the step, CarlJr was back at his normal place, winning his 3rd map of the step, and once again being the player who collected the most amount of points on this step. Step 8 started off with a 3rd place for the Canadian, finishing behind Spam and Bren. Where he finished top 3 on map 1 with his teammate, he made an early mistake on map 2.
And CarlJr as well. Well, here we go, Radiance. This is what we want to see.
And while CarlJr started to make the caster of the year nervous,
with Danny B, but I'm personally really worried about CarlJr in pack, because this is something I have never seen before. Because CarlJr is 4.8 seconds behind 8th, so he has to do quite some catching up here together with pack. They're actually going hand in hand.
And normally you can say what goes up must come down, but in this case I can say when CarlJr goes down, he will come up. And once again, it happened. And CarlJr finished among the top 8. On map 3, CarlJr was back at his normal self, and he took yet another map win. The same ended up being the story on map 4. CarlJr took his 2nd map win in a row, and going into the last step as the overall step leader. Step 8 ended up with CarlJr placing 4th on the last map, with CarlJr securing himself yet another step win. The penultimate step started off with CarlJr taking 2nd behind his teammate Bren from Solary. On map 2, we saw CarlJr making a mistake.
CarlJr has dropped out of the forest right there, and he's gonna drop down to 8th place, so he's still in the green.
But water is wet, and yeah, you know, CarlJr found his way back to the top 8 and finished 6th. So yet again, he kept his points from the earlier maps. On map 3, CarlJr once again found himself at 6th place, but knowing CarlJr, he wouldn't leave a step without a map win.
CarlJr, not sure if he knows that he's being attacked by Massa right now, but Massa is creeping in closer and closer. Now the final sculpture section right here. CarlJr jumping very rotated to the right, gets the auto slide down the sculpture, and it looks like CarlJr will remain in front of the German player, even though Massa is coming closer. He has so much speed, and it's only 1500s between CarlJr and Massa for P1, for the 20 points, for the €100, but it will be CarlJr that stays in front.
The second to last step of the season ended up with CarlJr placing second on map 5, as well as finishing second overall on the step leaderboard. So heading into the last step of the season, that was worth double points, CarlJr had to throw it away, while Pack had to more or less win all maps for the positions to change. The first map of the last step didn't start off the best for the Canadian, and once we entered the last lap, CarlJr found himself in a red position. But on the last lap, CarlJr climbed up to 5th place. On map 2, CarlJr ended up finishing 3rd. And on map 3, we ended up seeing the closest battle of the season.
The lead though, it is actually an insane battle between CarlJr and Kappa for that first place, for the 40 points here in step number 10. That is a neck-and-neck battle right now through the first couple of drifts right here in the lap number 4. Kappa getting an early lead. CarlJr actually releasing a little bit earlier to get a tighter line around the left bend. Didn't really pay off for him too much though, so Kappa will still remain in first place. Opts for a slightly inside line. CarlJr with more speed, slightly different trajectory here through the freewheel section, but all in all without too much of a change here for the top 2. Pretty set in stone right now. The only position that is not set in stone right now is the first place, the position that is going to give the player 40 points in total. Kappa right now in the lead, followed by CarlJr. The gap right now 900ths of a second. CarlJr once again going for a slight low jump, which does not really give him too big enough advantage, but he gets a lot of speed up the hill, and he's creeping in closer to Kappa. CarlJr now starting the drift a little bit earlier, tries to close into Kappa, but both of them getting a very decent exit speed here out of the left-hander. Up the sculpture now, we're coming towards the end of the track. The last sculpture coming up, who's gonna get the last turn best? CarlJr still trailing in the background, and it's waiting for a mistake by Kappa to happen, but Kappa is gonna stay in front, and CarlJr is not gonna be able to go for an overtake, but we have 300ths of a second between first and second place on skipping stones. That was absolutely bonkers.
And in the end, it was the 2018 world champion Kappa who came out the strongest of that battle. On map 4, CarlJr once again found himself making a mistake, but once again he found himself back into the top 8 and finishing 6th. And I guess it's safe to say that this step we didn't see the most prepared CarlJr, making some more mistakes on map 5, but once again finding himself in a red position during the race. But yeah, in the end he finished top 8 and kept his streaks of finishing above the red positions to 50 maps. So that's it for this group stage of the TrackMania Grand League BETA seasons. We have an unannounced playoff coming up. I guess we will just watch this video on repeat until that information comes around.